And again, I think if you do everything on Zoom, maybe it's easier. Anyway, thinking about that. Right, anyway, we're recording. So I'm looking at stuff from the, from our past classes. And it looks pretty interesting, actually. Quite a lot of it is language learning and language culture, or learning certain things. Some of it is kind of more culture. There's world Englishes and so on. Lots of stuff about words and language. Subtitles. Error analysis. Tomohiro isn't in today. No, okay. Actually, the only person I don't really have anything for so far, and maybe I've forgotten or lost it, but it's Moe. What's your plan for your dissertation?
I'm doing hospitality.
Oh, it is hospitality. Yeah, right. Yeah, did you think about that stuff I was saying about sociocultural theory?
Oh, not yet.
Not yet? The who said about somebody said about tea ceremony?
Yeah.
That was you, was it? Yeah, why didn't I write? I remember that now, but I didn't write it down for some reason. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say the only thing about if you say, I mean, you could say it's rooted in tea ceremony, right? But it's like tea ceremonies. How old is tea ceremony?
I think it was. Can't remember. I've got my documents here, so
yeah.
Let me just take a look.
Can't remember. I bet I can find it on Wikipedia or something.
Yeah.
Wikipedia. And that is, yeah. Ninth century. That's what it says here.
Oh, okay.
That's my that's what I've got from Wikipedia here. Right? Nihonkoki, okay. Buddhist monks brought back some tea to Japan on his return to China. Is there anything like tea ceremony in China?
But they do have tea culture.
You have tea culture, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have like a ceremony?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. So what's the point of tea ceremony then?
To invite people and have some nice time.
Have a nice time. Is it just have a nice time? Because we don't have that in the West, I don't think. I mean, I don't think Western. Yeah. So how would you explain that then?
It might be a bit hard to tell which one comes first, like hospitality or the tea ceremony. Like maybe they wanted to invite people. Like they always had some like hospitality spirits, and then wanted to have tea party, or there was tea party, and hospitality developed from there.
Right. Yeah, I think if you look at this, you got this idea about harmony, right? And they actually have these special like little houses and stuff like that built, special rooms to actually do it. So it seems like there's, the goal is some kind of social harmony, I suppose. Yeah, like so people can get along together.
Yeah.
Very well. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the socio-cultural type of argument in a way, because you'd say that probably in Asian culture, the goal or the ideal is social harmony rather than personal freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personal freedom and, for example, winning, right? Competition and winning. Yeah. I mean, how would you? I mean, if you say on one, I think it's a reasonable argument. Right? I mean, I don't think it's completely crazy. You could say something like, I mean, I think this applies to quite a few other people as well. Particularly probably Sara, maybe Minako with music and stuff like that. Haruka's talking about beauty, this cultural thing again. Yeah, world Englishes maybe. So I think culture sort of enters into these things quite a lot. So it might be worth having a little think about this. So basically in socio-cultural theory, right? And that would be people like, say, for example, particularly like Tomasello and people like that, right? And also there's the guy I mentioned, Nisbet. Yeah, I mean, they've got these socio-cultural theory ideas, and the idea is that all mental development takes place in culture. Yeah. So like as our brains develop and as we become what we are, right, what we think, what we do, everything about us, right, it all takes place in culture. And particularly the guy, this guy Nisbet here, right, this guy here, he kind of makes this point that the Western kind of ideal is freedom, personal freedom, should we say? Yeah, personal freedom, and also I suppose you could say like self-fulfillment, I suppose, if that makes sense. Yeah, like becoming your true self, sort of thing. Yeah, personal development, I suppose. And then in part of that, so let's make it self-development. It's easier to understand. Yeah, so like you've got to become yourself, your true self, sort of thing, right? Yeah, so that would be seen as kind of the Western ideal. And then the idea is that this idea itself developed from certain kinds of societies, right? Where you've got like trade and mixed agriculture. Particularly in ancient Greece. So you're kind of looking back here quite a long time, right? So about like maybe, I don't know, 4,000 years probably, yeah? So for the roots of this, where they started to trade much earlier and stuff like that. And then in the East Asian ideal, oops, is much more kind of harmonious relations. Yeah, and the idea there would be this kind of developed out of rice agriculture. Where there was basically sort of more need for cooperation. Yeah, so you kind of in the Chinese East Asian, right? In the East Asian model of understanding this, and they talk about like roots of this going back at least 4,000 years, right? At least say 4,000 years, 5,000, something like that, a long time, right? Then you get kind of cooperation is much more important in rice, in rice cultivation, right? Whereas in these others, it was kind of more competitive. In the case of the Western model, yeah, where they focus more on trade. You're trading, you're kind of competing with other people, and you don't really have to cooperate so much with the cultivation of a mixed agriculture, different kind of crops, and that is also kind of, you get more kind of more competition going on. And then in that, because you get these kind of things here, right? Then you'll see in the development of Western culture, particularly out of ancient Greece, you get things like the Olympics, right? So competitive sport. You'll get things like debate, yeah, which again is very competitive. You'll get drama, which kind of ties in with the idea of self-development to a certain extent, by becoming yourself, the individualism, yeah. And so then you get like much stronger kind of sense of individualism. And in a sense, you could say that, individualism actually is, right? It is this idea of freedom and, self-development. That's where individualism is, in a sense. Yeah. So you get that. And then in the East Asian model, yeah, it's a bit different. You don't really get this debate, yeah? Nothing like that really happens. It's much more focused on kind of harmonious relations. Visiting friends and family. And then things like hospitality. So in other words, if you're sort of thinking about these different, cultural forms, the ideal, in a sense, or the top person in these cases would be the people who can do debate very well, or maybe do very well in sports. Yeah. Whereas the top people in this particular kind of model, where hospitality is one of the big kind of ways that you show these cultural priorities, then you'll see that the people with the best hospitality, okay, are the most important people. Yeah. And so then, so you might say, well, okay, so maybe tea ceremony fits into that model. Yeah, because it does seem to be a kind of, it's a form of hospitality. So motenashi and stuff like that. Harmony is one of the big goals. Cooperation. Yeah. So I think something like that would make sense. Yeah, that'd be a sociocultural theory type approach. And then you think, okay, so what about today, right? This is kind of open to anybody in a way. But you think about the situation in the world today. Yeah, could you explain things that are happening in the world today in terms of this model? I should probably put down collectivism down here. Yeah. Yes, you get a kind of a more collectivist approach. Yeah, kind of more concerned with the group rather than the individual that you get in the Western model. Can anybody see how you could maybe explain things happening today in the world in terms of this kind of model? Anybody got any ideas? And what's in the news today? What's the big news?
The election.
In America, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's actually happening at the moment?
Oh, the COVID-19.
COVID-19, yeah. And what is the big difference there then? I mean, like, so if you say what happened in COVID-19, what would be the big difference there? Particularly in, say, for example, America and East Asian countries. I mean, how has America handled COVID compared to Japan, for example?
Looks like they didn't do very well.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of death.
Right. Yeah. And like, why is that then? Here's coronavirus statistics in America. This is 2 days ago. 92,660. Went up to about 99,798. Oh, 790. 80? Lost it. 784. A few days before that, 2 days ago, they had 1,130 people dying from coronavirus. And altogether, there have been, well, 9.57 million cases and 234,000 234,000 people dead. How does that compare with Japan, for example? Anybody? Let's have a look. Japan is, okay. Is just about the same day, 619 cases. Yeah. And deaths, oh, that's not deaths, that's not Japan. Let's have a look. Okay, altogether, 1,794. So America's getting like over 1,000 every day dying. Japan has had 1,794 altogether. Yeah, and new cases dying is only 6. Yeah, so America's getting like over 1,000 people dying, and Japan's getting only 6. So how do you explain that? I don't know what you think, but it's like, it seems to me that, you know, cooperation, consideration for other people, kind of a collectivist attitude, may be part of the explanation. I mean, you talk about the election. How does the election connect with individualism? Tell you what, guys, let's do a little bit of a breakout room here. Yeah, let me just come out here for a second. I haven't done a breakout room for ages, actually. I'm going to give you, okay, let me just see what. Let's keep it nice and simple. I'll say, how do you explain the difference in response to COVID-19 in America, in the USA, and Japan? Yeah. In other words, you know, it's like, say, USA is, I don't know, more than 1,000 people dying every day. And then Japan is like sort of only about 1,700 people dead so far altogether. Yeah. So that's a huge, huge difference there, right? So it's like, it seems like there's really big difference there in culture between the USA and Japan. Can I ask you how to explain that? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakout room period here. Let me just do this. Breakout room, breakout room, breakout room. Here we go. How many people we got? Let's say 4. Let's try that. Okay. I think we got four groups. Give you a little bit of time. Give a couple of minutes to think about that, and we can get some ideas. Okay. Ready? Coming up. Here we go. Get your microphones on, and here we go. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's worth thinking about that. I mean, in terms of the theory, I mean, how do you explain it? Where are the roots of those differences? Particularly if you think about the election, you got Donald Trump and these having these rallies all the time, right? It's like, even though in America, some things that are happening in Japan would be the same, right? So, for example, concerts, sporting events, not allowed to have large crowds of people. Yeah. And then you got these rallies, these stupid Trump rallies, and thousands of people all crammed together, right? And like the number of cases of COVID is going up because of the rallies. I mean, and you think, well, why is this one person allowed to do anything? And it seems like it's a kind of individualism gone crazy. Yeah, just like sort of I have to be free, right? Freedom to give people COVID-19, right? And I'm like completely free of all consideration for other people. Whereas if probably, I think in the Eastern Asian context, all the Asian countries have done very well. They've been everybody's wearing masks. Yeah? Americans will refuse to wear masks because they want to be free. I want to be free to express myself. Yeah. So that kind of thing is a bit crazy, I think. Anyway, I'll give you a couple of minutes more. Okay, then I should about do it. And let's close the rooms. About 20 seconds. Okay, then. I think we're back. All right, then. So let's start with, we've got my room one is Mimi and Sarah. How about you guys? What did you think? Hello?
We couldn't hear each other.
Oh, really?
So we couldn't talk anything.
Okay, that's a bit of a shame. Oh well, is that my fault? I wonder.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
Okay then. Right. Have you got any ideas though? Even though you couldn't do the breakout rooms? Not particularly? Okay, let's maybe come back to you anyway. How about Minako and Moe? Could you hear each other?
Yes.
Good.
So we talked about it, and it's a little similar to the one we talked like earlier.
Yeah.
Last semester.
Yeah.
But Japanese tend to do what others do.
Yeah.
So if others wear masks, then you do.
Right.
And if they don't go out, then you don't.
Right.
So it's like just follow others
Right.
sort of thing in Japan.
So do you think that's good or bad then?
Yeah. I mean, in this case, it helped. Probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah.
When is it bad?
Or like when they have to express themselves. Like they don't. Not they don't, but they tend not to show themselves very often.
Right. Right.
So during COVID-19, they had demo in the US, like Black Lives Matter demo. And then they wore masks, but they still had big gathering because they wanted to express themselves.
Yeah.
And they wanted to show their thoughts or ideas, or I don't know. But yeah, so I think it wasn't really good with the virus. Maybe the virus spread there. As well. Yeah.
But my question then is so do you think it is reasonable to think that actually those things are rooted, right, in very deep kind of cultural differences?
Yes.
And like the idea that that actually goes back to the importance of rice cultivation in East Asia, whereas where you've got a more mixed model with trade being more important in the case of Western countries. Maybe that kind of explains it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I don't know the roots, but yeah, maybe that's where it came from.
Right. Yeah, I think I think it's a reasonable idea. Right? I don't think it's stupid or anything like that. It kind of makes sense. Okay then. And what about Yuka and Hami? How about you guys?
Yes. We saw Japanese people have a very cautious national character compared to America. So we thought that the fact. And also we have the custom to wearing masks before Corona.
Right.
So it is also fact, we thought.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, the custom of wearing masks, right?
Yeah.
And which I like now, actually. I kind of like wearing a mask. I didn't at first because those paper ones. I hate those paper ones. Yeah. If you get a nice, comfortable cloth mask, I like it.
Is very cute.
Tottenham Hotspur soccer team, right? One of the oldest soccer teams in the UK. But anyway, yeah. So you got that custom of wearing a mask, right? But I think it's kind of very common in East Asian countries like China and Korea. People tend to wear masks, right? So why is that? That's not cautious, right? Is it? Or it is cautious, is it? Isn't it consideration? Consideration for other people.
Consideration. Yeah.
Like you're sort of concerned about other people. You don't want to give other people your germs and that kind of thing. And so you are concerned about other people. So I guess you're more cautious, more careful in that situation. Yeah. And then sometimes maybe, as Moya was saying, maybe sometimes it's bad, right? I mean, in some ways it's bad, but sometimes it's very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe that kind of mask wearing culture, right? Yeah. Also kind of comes down to this kind of collectivist idea where you're kind of thinking about the group more than about the individual. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what about in in America, with the elections, how have they? Have people been wearing masks there? Do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I would say. Hang on, let me just rally. Let me just get some pictures here for a second. I'm just going to try and find some. Oh, that's wrong. Try and get some pictures of Trump rallies. Yeah, and to me, this is what is like completely crazy. Hang on. Where's my? Oh, there we are. Okay, got it. Right, here we are. So here's Trump rallies, right? And you can see they're all packed together. And there's President Trump. I mean, what an idiot, right? And you can see these people are all packed together in these rallies, yeah? And they're not, very often they're not wearing masks. I don't think anybody's wearing a mask then. Yeah? Nobody's wearing a mask, right? He doesn't wear a mask. He caught coronavirus. He's an idiot, right? But these guys, these are lunatics, right? These people are mad. But basically, they just don't seem to be bothered to wear masks. They're all packed together. But it's like, to me, what is really crazy here is that sporting events, like, sort of American football and baseball and concerts, music concerts, people are not allowed to get together, right, for these concerts. But just for this guy, this one stupid guy, right, they can do anything they want. They're completely free to get together and do all these stupid things. Yeah. And so, again, to me, that seems to be based in this kind of individualist way of thinking, right? I have to be free. I don't want to wear a mask. Oh, I have to be free to breathe all people, right? And it's mad. It's completely mad, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, so I think that maybe, right, you could say that, again, there's the roots, right? The roots are going to be looking back 5,000 years, yeah, to rice cultivation, the importance of rice cultivation in East Asia, particularly in ancient China, and the more mixed agriculture and trade in European countries, which then influences America, a very individualist country. Individualism, freedom, right? I must be myself, right? I don't care about other people, right? So a complete lack of consideration. Yeah? Freedom is more important than consideration for other people. So anyway, I think, it's like, you try to explain it. Well, those theories, sociocultural, they do explain it, I think, reasonably well. It gives you some kind of explanation. And, I think better, because Sarah is in the next group, right, it's a better explanation, I think, than saying, Western is hunting, for example, right? And Japan is agriculture. Western European culture is hunting. No, I don't think that makes sense, right? But I think the different kinds of agriculture and different focus does maybe explain things better. Anyway, let's go to room 4 here. Sara and Yuna. How about you guys? What do you think? Sara, Yuna?
Yeah. We discussed the cultural difference of wearing masks. We Japanese tend to wear masks, and it's like our customs, as other students said. But Yuna said that in America, people think that if you wear a mask, you have serious or big disorder. So that's the difference, that they wear masks or not.
Right.
And Una said that the difference of law also influenced the COVID-19 spreading. So like Japanese, in Japan, the Japanese government like wanted us to do less more activity, but not under the law. But in America, the law was very strict, and people are kind of like people were made stay in the house. So that's also differences for the COVID-19.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's.
And
I think
that's
that.
it.
Yeah, and I think that relates to because you're thinking about language and culture, right? And I think maybe that does relate to it in some ways. I mean, particularly you said about the law, right? In Japan, the government didn't really have to be very strict because they could say, we want you to control yourself. Yeah?
Yeah.
Self-control, right? You get self-control.
Mm.
And you control yourself so that you can help everybody else. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a reasonable way of putting it, right? You got those jishuku type thing. Yeah? And that's a kind of self-control idea, controlling yourself, and the goal is to sort of help the situation for everybody. Right? If everybody controls themselves, right, then everybody as a collective, as a group, everybody benefits. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
they couldn't, and then in America they couldn't do that. Yeah, they completely failed to do that. I mean, like they weren't able to get people to control themselves, and so they had to have very strict laws and rules to force people to control themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because, otherwise, people think, well, my own freedom is more important. So I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to sacrifice my freedom, and then as a result, the government has to have laws, right? Has to have strict laws. But then what is crazy to me is like when you think about that, right? And then the situation with America, where they have strict laws, right? Their laws have to be stricter, right? So, in other words, for going to sporting events, concerts, things like that, they have strict laws saying you cannot do that. And yet, when this idiot of a president, this idiot of a president wants to have a rally, right? He just does whatever he wants. I mean, look at these fools, right? These absolute fools. Anyway, right? So anyway, that's my point in a sense, right? It's like, I think that's what I want to try and suggest to you guys, because there's a few of you kind of in this area of language and culture and cultural differences, the influence on language, I mean, onomatopoeia and stuff like that. I think about the roots. Where do these differences come from? And I think the idea that it's rooted in ancient culture, right? Sort of fairly big differences in ancient culture, that kind of makes sense. And I think then it helps you to explain what is going on in the world. And then you got this, Trump. Basically, it seems to be prepared to sacrifice everything for himself, right? Completely selfish. as far as I can see. What do you think? I mean, that's my opinion, I think. I mean, like, to me, it seems that, you know, if you're trying to explain things in terms of that theory, right, where you've got individualism, which sometimes is good, right? Because, you know, Moy said that sometimes if you've got a group mentality, collective mentality, where you're kind of cautious and controlling yourself, sometimes it's not good, particularly when it comes to self-expression, right? Maybe people are hesitant, right? People are a bit hesitant to express themselves. But then you've got situations like, you know, in America here, where, you know, you got kind of self-expression, freedom, right? Freedom to do whatever you want gets completely out of control. And even in situations where the rules are strict, right? The rules are strict. The president doesn't follow those rules, right? Because it's a completely selfish, self-centered, individualist form of a kind of philosophy, I suppose, a way of thinking. So what do you think, guys? What do you think about what's happening in America? Do you think I'm saying too much there? Do you think it's like it's not bad? I mean, what's your opinion of what's happening in America now with this guy? These guys in the rallies. Oh, these guys have got masks behind here. I think after he caught it, they started to have masks. You are slowly getting, but then again, nothing here. Nobody's got masks there. So what do you think about America at the moment? Any opinion?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he's quite stupid.
An idiot, right?
Yeah.
A complete idiot. I mean, it's amazing. So do you think that makes any difference? Anything? Do you think that has any consequences for Japan? The fact that America seems to be, you know, kind of struggling at the moment, having all kinds of problems. Do you think that is important for Japan or not?
I think the virus is still spreading in Japan as well, but I'm not sure if like they take it as a big deal.
Yeah.
They don't really say much stuff in news lately.
Right.
I mean, they say numbers and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really feel it's that big a deal now, because it seems to be reasonably under control. I mean, the UK, I think they had a very hard time. I mean, their numbers have gone up again as well in the UK. I wonder if I can get some UK coronavirus stats. Let's try that. Okay, so you can see there's the UK. They're getting quite a lot every day as well, right? 25,000. And of course, the population of the UK is a lot less than, it's only about a quarter of America, I think. So it's similar, in a way, it's a similar kind of number. And also the cases of deaths, lots, actually. Yeah. So it seems as if those Western countries, I mean, the individualist countries, right? Those individualist countries where personal freedom is more important than self-control as a way of harmonizing with the collective. It seems that these countries do have a serious problem. I don't want to go back to the UK, but it seems probably as bad as America, actually, given the population, at least as bad. So culture, maybe, yeah. And if there's cultural difference, then you think, well, okay, what is the root, right? What are the roots of that cultural difference, of those cultural differences? And I think sociocultural theory offers a reasonable explanation of that. That it's essentially going back to ancient cultures, ancient Greece, ancient China, 5,000, probably 5,000 years ago, with development of agriculture, which was very much focused on rice in China. So you had to be more cooperative, you had to work together, you had to harmonize. Whereas in Greece, in the European Western model, it was more mixed, different kinds of agriculture, and trade became more important. And so you have this more competitive individualist style. So, you know, I think maybe, you know, that's worth thinking about. And I think it explains quite a lot of what's going on. Yeah, so that's that. And thinking about this, let's have a look. So Yuna, you are also thinking about the connection between tourism and second language acquisition. So probably hospitality, right, is important, concept of hospitality, and why people learn languages. Yeah, tourism and second language acquisition. Tourism and second language acquisition. I suppose, yeah, I mean, like, if you think about hospitality is very important in Japan. And so you want to be able to help people. You learn the language. You're focused on learning English in order to help other people. And, you know, as Moy said, in these things, and basically in all of these, actually, what have I done here? Where am I? Okay, yeah. You know, these cultural differences is like there's a good side and a bad side to all of it, right? You've got personal freedom, individualism. It's good in many ways because personal expression, right? Personal expression is important. Yeah, the ability to express yourself. Right? I want to be able to express my opinion, right? That's important. But at the same time, you know, sometimes it goes crazy. I mean, and goes too far. And like with Trump, he's a complete idiot, right? And he's made a complete mess of the country and the handling of coronavirus. He's messed up the economy. He's basically destroying everything. So sometimes this individualism goes too far. And I think maybe in the case of tourism and second language acquisition, similar kind of idea maybe works. Can you see how? You know.
Yes.
Can you see how maybe in second language acquisition, right, and tourism, yeah, can you see how maybe the cultural differences have an effect? Japanese attitudes towards tourism and so on. Can you see how maybe that has an influence on second language acquisition? It's quite a difficult question, so don't worry too much if you can't think of it. Got any ideas?
No.
No? Quite difficult, right? It's quite difficult. But I think maybe, right? I mean, I think I'm going to go into the screen share again here, actually, for a second. No. Yeah. You're talking about, again, this is like related to hospitality, right? We just mentioned the hospitality in Japanese culture, omotenashi, stuff like that is important, and maybe that's rooted in ancient Chinese civilization and so on, right? Consideration for other people, And so that idea of hospitality and then relates to tourism and second language acquisition. You might think because hospitality, right? Hospitality and consideration for other people, right, is important. Do you think that probably has an influence on tourism and second language acquisition? Can anybody see a connection there? It's quite, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, right? But I've got an idea here, right? This is what I would think. I'm going to tell you, right, what I think. Basically, with second language acquisition, right? If you say second language acquisition, you know, you have to say one big thing that really influences this would be motivation. And one thing you'll find is that the motivation, people's motivation in Eastern cultures, like East Asian cultures, and people's motivation in Western cultures can sometimes be different. Can you think of maybe motivation to learn a second language may be different in the case of Western people, let's say Westerners, and how that could maybe be different in the case of Westerners and let's say Orientals, East Asians. How about that? Can you think how maybe motivation to learn a second language may be different in the case of Westerners and East Asians? Anybody? I mean, what about you? I mean, what's your motivation for learning English? What was your big motivation in school, for example, when you were in junior high school and high school? Anybody?
My motivation in high school was exams, because I was sort of like competitive and I always wanted to get better,
Right.
or get better results
Yeah.
in exams.
Right.
So yeah, that was my motivation in high school.
Right. And what you'll find is that that is in a way not different. Yeah. Not so different anyway in the East and the West. Right. Mm-hmm. So in other words, both Western students and East Asian students want to pass exams and get good scores in tests. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's no real difference there. Mm-hmm. But, right, the reason people have, yeah, the reasons people have for doing well in the tests may be different. Yeah. So, for example, it's one study has suggested that Westerners want to do well in the tests because it helps their kind of self-esteem. In other words, it makes them feel good. Yeah. Whereas in Eastern Asian contexts, like say Japan or China, it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's partly, right? It's partly this, but not so much as in the West. Can you think of any other reason why people are motivated to learn language? Also to get good scores in tests, I mean. So in the West, people want to do well in a test because it makes them feel good. Yeah. And that's true also in East Asia, but not so much. Right? There's another reason people want to do well in the tests. Can you think what that is?
Maybe because they don't want to feel less than others.
Yeah. But in a way, that's the same kind of thing, self-esteem.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's similar to that. But something that's not really self-esteem.
What about like for career for the future?
Korea. So I missed that.
I mean, like the skills to get jobs.
Yeah, that's right. Sort of career opportunities for the career. Yes, yeah. And I guess also that would be similar in a way, right? Career opportunities would also be that. Also, would be important in the East Asian context as well. So this you have the similar kind of things on both sides, yeah. So that would be probably the same basically, but right, they're saying that there's an extra thing in the case of East Asian people, particularly Chinese and Japanese and people like that, right, where they also want to make their parents happy. Yeah. And what you'll find is this is also the case here, right, in the West, right? I mean, Western people also want to make their parents happy, yeah? But you probably find, I think, that in the case of the East Asians, this is much more important among East Asians than this is among Westerners. Yeah. And then, for example, yes, self-esteem is important among East Asians also, but not as important as it is in the West. And then career opportunities are also important here, but again, maybe East Asian people are thinking about career opportunities so they can fit into society, make everybody happy. And so making your parents happy, making your family proud of you, that kind of thing is going to be a more important motivation. So in other words, other people, right? Even though self-esteem is important, and getting a job is important, passing exams is important, they're all important in both cases. But somehow in the case of East Asians, the research suggests that making other people happy, right? Making other people happy is more important, right, than it is in the West. Yeah. So, other people, collectivist, right? Collectivist considerations, other people are more important for East Asians than they are for Westerners. Now, when it comes to second language acquisition, can you see where maybe sometimes that's a problem? So in the East Asian context, very often you'll find that other people, right, consideration for other people, thinking about other people, fitting in, harmonizing with other people, which is great when it comes to wearing masks, dealing with the COVID crisis. It's great in many ways. but maybe sometimes with second language acquisition, maybe it's a problem. Because Hami, this fits in with your topic as well. Hello? Anybody there? Speak to me, somebody speak to me. Can you see how, like, if you have this focus on be a consideration for other people, right? Consideration for other people, concern about other people. Can you see maybe that's a problem when it comes to learning a language?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the motivation is not for like themselves, but because of their parents. So it is like hard to acquire the language.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. Right. It's like if your motivation is for other people, right? Maybe that then does have an effect on your basic motivation for learning a language. Yeah. Can you explain how that might work?
I'm sorry. What are you mentioning about?
Yeah, I mean, like say for example, if you are focused on, let me see, if you're focused on, if you've got a collectivist attitude, right? You're thinking about other people. Yeah. How could that maybe have a bad effect on learning second language, learning a second language?
Okay, so like, in my opinion, the students are made to learn English or some other language, and like the made to do is like less eager to acquire a language. So it is like difficult to master or like use correctly the language.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Can you think exactly how though? Could you explain like what, exactly how that might work? I mean, I've got
no ideas. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I've got, for example, Hami, right? I've got some stuff from you discussed in the first semester, I think. I mean, you mentioned, I believe, that Japanese people hate making mistakes, and also you said they're not motivated so much, or at least we're discussing this, and we came up with the idea of not motivated to communicate. Yeah. Particularly. And that seems to be, I don't know, maybe partly because you're more concerned about other people. You're more concerned about what other people think than you are with expressing yourself. And if you're more concerned with avoiding mistakes, yeah, and you're not really very motivated to communicate, then I guess learning a second language is going to be more difficult. Does that make sense? And it's like, I mean, I would say that in a way, right, the idea of self-expression, yeah, self-expression is really at the is really kind of one of the big things to do with individualism, and that's going to be like in the roots of Western culture. Debate, right? Debate is very important. Drama, right? That's going to be very important. Expressing your opinion, right? Expressing your opinion is going to be very important. And if you're not really very motivated to express yourself, then maybe learning a second language does become quite difficult. And you know, I tend to my feeling about Japanese learners of English is that generally they're rather good at English, so they use English rather well, right? And they've studied fairly hard, but they're not particularly motivated to express themselves. Yeah, so that would be my assessment of, say, Japanese learners of English, that they're not very motivated to express themselves. And I think perhaps the cultural difference, the deep cultural difference, the individualist on one side and the kind of the group orientation on the other side, which is rooted in ancient cultures, maybe helps to explain that. The Japanese people are more concerned with other people. They're more considerate of other people, which is great in some ways, but in some ways, it's not so great. As Moy said, if you don't really want to express yourself, then it's difficult to learn how to think for yourself, maybe because you're not really motivated to express yourself. And then particularly when it comes to learning a second language, right? First of all, you're not very motivated to express yourself. And then learning a second language, you're afraid of making grammatical mistakes and things like that. And so, you know, that also you can explain in terms of those cultural differences, perhaps. Yeah. And Hami, that was your basic idea, right? Students, you hate making mistakes.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. You said that Japanese students hate making mistakes in English, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you think maybe it's because Japanese people are more concerned about other people than Westerners, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think.
And that is, in some ways, that's good, right? So you want to keep that, right? You want to keep that good thing because it's good that people are considerate, they wear masks, they worry about other people. It's great in some ways, but sometimes, say, for example, learning a second language, it's a problem.
Yeah.
How do you solve that problem?
Solved.
Solve. How do you solve it? How do you solve that problem? How do you solve that problem?
To make the custom to challenge everything and なんだろう。First, I なんだろう。First, oh, sorry. I don't mind to others' mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. I mean, I think that's right. You've got to like have a kind of I don't know, atmosphere, right?
Yes.
You kind of create this kind of group
Yes.
atmosphere that nobody minds mistakes. Yeah. So
I
I
understand
suppose basically what it is, it's like you've got to like, I mean, say that everybody hates making mistakes. But then you sort of like you support people, yeah. Support people, so by helping them, like say this is everybody's going to make a mistake. Nobody cares about that. Nobody worries about that. So we want you to make mistakes. So create a kind of create a supportive atmosphere, I suppose. Yeah. Oops, what's happening there? Atmosphere. Like say particularly in the classroom or in those kind of settings where people don't mind making mistakes. Yes. You've got to make extra effort, right? Mm-hmm. Got to make extra effort to kind of help people to relax and stop worrying about making mistakes. Yeah. So I think that's right. I think it's the same thing. Deep down, it's the same problem or the same reality. Mm-hmm. Western people are more individualists. East Asian people, Japanese people are more group oriented. They're more concerned about the group, less about the individual. They're less concerned about expressing themselves. They're more concerned about making mistakes, worrying about other people. So therefore, you've got to try and do your best to support people, right, in that kind of situation and get over it. Yes. Okay, but that's interesting, guys. I better stop there, actually, because I don't want to run on too late. But good. I'm going to kind of carry on with this and try and bring everybody's ideas together so we can kind of make some progress together in this. Okay, then. Right then, guys. So I'm going to stop there, actually. But I think you can see that, think deeply, right? Deeply about the roots, right? The roots of the situation. And then you can it helps you make sense of things that happened in history, but also things that are happening around us today. Okay then, guys, right then, I'm gonna stop there. Any questions? No? Any comments? No? Everybody's okay? So give me a thumbs up if you're all right. Everybody all right? No? Yes? Yeah, okay, great. Okay then, guys, so I'll stop there and I'll see you next week. If you do come into school, I'll be in my office, 513, all right? So don't go to 1203 or something, it's 513, I mean 513. Okay then, guys, so bye-bye. Sarah, oh, gone, okay. Okay, then, that's it.